Hey, how's it going? Today's live is going to be with Colleen Nelson with Next Level Therapy. I'm going to try to connect her right now if I know how to. Hey. All right, let me search for Colleen real quick. And we'll get her in here. Today's topic we're going to talk about, there it is reasons why you choose unavailable partners. So why do people keep choosing the same people who are unavailable? So we're going to dive into it, actually get some answers from my licensed therapist, not just vague, like, do good and look inward and be better. We're going to get some nitty gritty details. What's up, Melissa? Hey. I sent the invite to her, so we'll see if it connects. Anyways, yeah, so we're going to dive into some of those questions a little deeper. If you guys have questions for her when she comes on, if she's being too vague or I'm being too vague with my questions, freaking throw some questions in the comments. I'm going to ask her. I'm going to try to get her off guard. What's up, Colleen?
Hey.
How are you?
Good. Just coming at you from my office. I'm like realizing how far away my look how close that is.
It's a little bit more zoomed in, so it's a little bit smaller of a square there. All right, so I'm in the garage. I have a studio.
I like
it. Around, but it's a garage in here. Anyways, I kind of told them about what we're doing. So reasons why people choose unavailable partners. This is Colleen Nelson with Next Level Therapy. She's a licensed therapist, specializes in, you introduce yourself. I don't know.
Oh, you want me to take that one?
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I am a licensed therapist, and I'm an expert in trauma therapy in particular. I do EMDR, and I work often with people who are struggling with trying to figure out why they have the patterns that they do and where that comes from. So I do a lot of self-relationship work. And I have my own private practice as well as my online platform where I talk about this often. I love to talk about shadow work. So if anybody knows what shadow work is, we go there. But I'm really excited about this topic because I think it's something that we all talk about, but we never actually dig into, right? Like we don't answer the question. We literally just say, I date unavailable people, my picker's off, like, why do I keep doing this? And yet we don't actually.
Why do we keep this? Why do I pick people?
Yeah.
Why do I, someone who's dating, pick someone who is unavailable? Riddle me this, Colleen.
So what I love is that when you posted your video and use some of the statements that I'd given you, but let's be honest, everyone. I'm just going to be completely honest with y'all. The reason why you pick unavailable people is because you are unavailable. That's just the actual truth of it.
Are you sure? Why? So, okay, I choose unavailable people, let's say, because I'm unavailable.
Yeah.
Please explain.
So this can look different for so many different people, okay? And I think it's important to realize that we don't always realize that we're unavailable because we think that we want someone all the time. And especially this goes for those of us that are raised in the era of like the Disney fairy tale, right? In the sense of like, if I find this person, I will feel better. And this is not the solution to feeling better, but we're told this a lot. And I'm a millennial, so I was told this from like day one. If I find somebody, I'm going to feel better. Thanks, Ariel, right? But at the end of the day, we are unavailable in so many different ways. If we're not able to hold and maintain boundaries on our energy, on our time, on the way that we can prioritize ourselves, that makes us unavailable to actually create space for someone to come in a real way. If we are unavailable to ourselves in terms of how we give ourselves love, self-care, if we don't know how to love ourselves and meet our own needs, there is no way we're going to be able to communicate that to somebody else. And this is the tough part is, I'm not saying you can't have relationships when you're doing the work. Like, absolutely, conscious relationship work is a part of doing the work. But you have to recognize where you're not actually doing the work for you and you're looking for someone else to fill those voids.
So how do I know? These are great points. I love the analogy about Ariel, that POS. Good song, Sebastian with his crabbiness, all that stuff. We can't
You
be.
kind of look like Eric, actually, if we're really going to get real.
Let's not. And so, okay. So how do we know? How do we know? Or how do we work on ourselves? How do we become available, right?
Yes.
Before we start with somebody, because if we're available, then we can seek people who are available.
Yes.
So, what is step one?
Ooh, great question. Okay, so step one is the awareness. Okay, so for anybody watching, you're in step one. You made it.
Woo!
Woo! Okay, it's the awareness of recognizing, wait a second, I am continuing to pick unavailable people. It is literally that first step. And not making excuses. I'll be honest with you, I'm the first person to say that I'll be like, well, they're just busy at work. You know, it's not that they're unavailable, they just have a really demanding job. Or, they just really like to work out. So I'm feeling like eventually when they get like that body that they want, they're going to make time for me. So we make excuses consistently and constantly why somebody is not showing up the way we deserve. And it's conditional. We're always saying, oh, it's something they'll get over. It's something that they'll get better from. So it's the second you actually say, wait a second, I'm investing in somebody based on potential, and I need to just acknowledge that I'm picking unavailable people, which means I got to turn that around and find out what I'm doing that's making me unavailable. That's step one.
Okay. And so, what I heard a couple of things in there that, so let's see, how do we know if they're just like, what are some good clues or symptoms or kind of rules of thumb maybe about, are you making excuses for them? Are they unavailable? Am I unavailable? Like the part about where like they're just busy. They have work. They have a spring project at work, or they're just going to the gym so much, and like once they, you're making excuses, that thing. So what's a good like rule of thumb of knowing when you're making excuses for them, versus they're just having a sprint at work? I know it seems like it'd be easy to decipher the two, but you know what I'm saying?
So I'm gonna be heteronormative for 1 second here, right? And a little cisgendered as well, in the sense that I'm going to talk about it from a gendered perspective for a hot second.
Okay.
So men are very direct. And typically, if they want to make time for you, they will. Women are typically, and I'll say the word typically, a little bit more nuanced with this. So there is some potentiality that, because again of the culture we're raised in and some of this pursuer chaser thing that we were taught, women are taught to be pursued. So sometimes we will be a little more elusive. So if we're looking at heteronormative dating rituals, that can show up quite a bit. So I have to say that out loud just because I can't give an overarching statement without some of that cultural component to it. Now this does play out in LGBTQ AI relationships, but it's going to be a little bit different culturally. So what I think is really important is that if you are not feeling like the person is responding in a way that makes you feel good. So I'll say something like, let's say I'm talking to somebody on a dating app. Okay. And we're having a good conversation. And then the time has come for us to go on a date. And the person just cannot nail down a time to hang out. Right. Does it make me feel okay that they're taking so long to figure out when they can fit me into their schedule? Is there a reason that this is going on? Because what ends up happening is we base it off of our mental thought process and not actually about what our body is feeling. If your body feels yucky, right, that's a no. And it's okay if it's just because they're busy. It's a no. You don't want to put yourself in a position of waiting just because this person happens to be unavailable at this moment. So that's like the very beginning stages. But some other unavailable signs is the inability to communicate effectively and be honest and open about their schedule, their time, and their situation. Kind of straight off the bat, and I'm sure you can speak to this, Mike, for a little bit. If they're like, I don't want to date, I just want something casual. I just got out of a relationship a few weeks ago. Like, they're being honest with you. They're telling you the truth. You have to listen. That doesn't mean that you can change their mind.
Right. No, absolutely. That's yeah, that last part there. I get tons of messages and questions and like, asking for advice or just like perspective or my experience. And so that's a typical question I'll get from women is like, hey, this guy said he's not looking to date seriously. But Mike, since then he's been doing A, B, C, and D, which are all relationship things. And I'm like, well, did he say he didn't want to date? Well, yeah, but he's doing the if he said it, and this is just the way this is again a majority, I would say, or at least what I've seen through friends, through all the DMs and comments and stories, and just my own experience with like listening to people. If that guy says it subtly once or anything in the very beginning, right? He's being very honest, like, hey, I just want to look for something casual, or whatever, however he phrases it. If it's a casual statement, like saying, I don't want to date seriously, for the very most part, no matter what he does afterwards, again, for the most part, is gonna fall back on that, like, no. And that's how situationships typically I've seen come to fruition is it's usually that way. It's usually the guy saying, oh, let's keep it casual. But then he wants all the positive things about a relationship. Someone there every night, someone to hang out with when you're bored or like just daily, whatever, relationship stuff. And then when the moment comes when that question is, what are we? We've been seeing each other for how long? And like, my entire life. That's where that comes up is what I've seen. So yeah, if a guy says, I want casual, he means it. So
yeah, they do. And that's the tough part is, man, we hear so many stories about the exception, right? Like, how many times have you heard the story? And there's that ridiculous movie, oh my goodness, I don't remember it. I'm sure it's going to pop up here where
that goes with any kind of topic, relationships or like any topic, even not about it, right? It's the ones, the stories that we hear about are like, usually like ones for like news media or like The Exception or like the miracle story. That's where movies are made from, right? It's from like that one time, one chance. And so like, it's that hope, that dream, that thing. So we hear about those ones because they're so far and few between when they happen, whatever the topic, in this case, dating. It's like, it can happen. You're like, well, yeah, sure.
He's just not that into you. Nicely done. Comments. That's the movie. Everybody I was like, they're gonna tell me what it is. Yes. People unite that watch the movie. This is a perfect movie, Mike. If you haven't seen it,
have I seen that into you? Yeah, it's been so long. I've seen so many movies. I had like my movie phase growing up where like I hammered out so many movies. That's where like all my foundation of like humor comes from. Is like when I was like 12 to like 8. But
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Oh my gosh. The rule, not the exception. Exactly. But this movie talks about that, Mike. So this movie, he's just not that into you. It talks about this very factor. And to be honest with you, I liked the movie and the book itself. I mean, it actually hit me in the gut when I watched it. And not a lot of movies will do that. But I cannot tell you how many of my friends and we will sit around and we will talk this through. We will talk this to death. We will be like, but what about this? But he messaged me here. But look at this. He sent me this. And then he told me this. And you know what? He looked at me this way. Or what if in 5 years we will do this consistently. And it's because we're avoiding, here's the big aha. We're avoiding sitting in the shit. We're avoiding sitting in that yucky place between relationships where we have to raise our standards and our expectations and say, I deserve more. And we're willing to settle for scraps because there's a part of us that doesn't believe that we're worthy of anything more. And we're willing to settle for scraps because we're afraid that when we're alone, the feelings that are going to come up are going to trigger a whole lot of other stuff that we've actually really worked very hard to put underneath the surface. So we will talk this to death because if we can find 1 ounce of hope that this guy that we've decided to attach to that isn't actually somebody that is available at all could like us, then we don't have to go through the painful realization that this person at this point in time didn't choose us. And we have to choose ourselves.
Right. Yeah. No, like the avoiding the confrontation, avoiding the inevitable, seeing the train crash, and you're like, no, it's not. It's fine. It's great here. I'm so happy. And then, then when you do go to pull the Band-Aid off, you're like, damn it, it's exactly what I thought it was going to be. And it hurts. It sucks.
It's so hard. It is
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah. No one likes to deal with confrontation or breakups or anything like that. Heartache, all those things. It's a very necessary thing to. When I say confrontation, I don't mean in a very negative, like, I'm coming at you. It's just like a bringing up, aka communication. Yeah. We're going to confront this thing that, like, hey, I'm confused about it. We're on the same page. We're going to talk about this issue or this topic in a very neutral way. And that in itself is confrontation, which is hard for a lot of people, myself included, right? It's uncomfortable. It takes repetition to be more okay with it. It doesn't make it like easy. It makes it easier to know how you're feeling through at the other side of it, But so repetition, knowing your standards, like you just said, knowing yourself better.
Well, I find being okay with the fact that it may not work out, and letting that actually move you, change you, and teach you a lesson. And this goes for, again, like when I'm talking to typically women, we like to hold on longer than we should. When I'm talking to typically men, and again, I'm being gendered here for a moment, they avoid confrontation. They don't actually want to hurt someone, so they don't actually get to a place where can we create an app for those doing the work? They don't actually get to a place where they have to feel that pain of losing somebody, or that vulnerability, or see it reflected in their partner. There's a lot of men that I work with who don't let it get to this stage of getting attached because they don't want to hurt somebody, and they're honestly not in a position where they want to be hurt either. But it gets us all wrapped up in these situationships. It gets us put in these places where we're consistently and constantly playing out the same cycles with one another. And it feels awful because all of us want partnership to a degree, right? The timing of it changes for everybody, but we're humans. We're not meant to live life alone forever. Sorry for those of you, those introverts out there who really love to live alone. I feel you, but like we got to have some sort of connection.
My life is exactly how I want it.
I know, of course it is, because there's nothing hard, right? No, I'm just kidding. But there's a component of this that's so crucial for our expansion of ourselves, for our desires, for our fullness of life. We deserve to have love in a very real capacity. And we're not going to find it if we don't do the work internally to actually become available to ourselves first. We're not going to know what our standards actually are.
I love that. So you got to know yourself better to know when you're available, and then you go outwards. So let's just say, to keep on topic here as best we can. Yeah. No, we're doing great. Okay, say we have done the self-work. We know we're available. We're like, yes, I've done all the things.
Yep.
I'm available.
Yeah.
I have time on my plate.
Yeah.
I want this thing. I want to have relationships. I'm trying towards it. What do we like? What would you tell someone? How do you find someone who is available, right? Like, what are some common clues that they are available, that the person you're looking at, right? Or I guess the easier one would be, what are some common clues that they're not, like right off the bat?
Okay, so common clues that they're not right off the bat is the way that they communicate with you. If they're unavailable through communication, they're probably unavailable. And what they're talking about. Okay, so if they're talking a lot about themselves, or like a really big project they're working on, or their ex, like pay attention to the topic of conversation. It's going to tell you what their interests are or what they're currently focusing on. If they're asking you interesting questions, if they're curious about your life, if they're investing time and energy in you, if they're honest and upfront. And to be honest with you, I want to know, have you done the work? Literally, one of my first questions anytime I'm going to go into the dating market is, tell me about the self-work that you've been doing. And I mean, I'm a therapist, so if anybody's going to date me, they just know that like comes with the package. But I want people who have done the work. And I want to know that. I want to hear about their support systems. I want to know who their friends are that they go to. I want to hear about the ahas they've had in therapy or on retreats or whatever they happen to be doing. Because if they haven't done the work and they can't communicate that to me, honestly, I know that they're in a position where they're going to hit that brick wall and they're going to have to do the work, whether in relationship with me or before we even get into that relationship.
I love what you said. I never thought of it this way. I mean, like, not that I never thought of it this way, but like, I don't focus on it. So the content in which they're talking about, right? Like,
Yeah.
start talking to someone new on an app or in person or wherever, and it's not just like how they make you feel or if they're talking to you. It's, you know, which is part of it, but it sounds like a big variable that I probably don't even notice because I'll just get hooked on whatever they're talking about. So I know for me, for example, I enjoy working on business, on real estate, on like side hustles, and all the things. And so when someone else is as ambitious or has something that I strive to do or be or whatever, like almost like internally like jealous, but like supportive of what they're doing, I get all like attached. Like I'm like, oh, tell me more. Like I love talking to you. I like learning because you're doing something that I want to do. Let's say, and so I want to learn. And like I like this conversation. We both understand each other. But when I look back now, like, you know, hindsight's 2020 is they're constantly talking about those things I like to talk about, but it clearly shows that like they're doing those things, and so they're physically, you know, they're busy doing that stuff, and so they're like literally unavailable because they're traveling for work, they're working on this new project, they just started another whatever, you know.
Well, an example of this, Mike, and I'll role play with you, like literally right here. An example is I'm a busy woman. Okay. I got a lot of stuff going on. I'm a single mom of 2 kids, full practice. I'm busy. And you know what? I am still available. And the reason why is because I know how to prioritize my time and I know what I want and I know how I can make it happen. So what I would do is I'd talk about business and then I would say something like, so Mike, tell me a little bit about like where you see yourself in the next 6 months. What are some of the dreams you have for your life, for you and Ellie? You know, I'm interested in where your life is going. I'm interested in you. I'm interested in your daughter. I'm interested in your deeper emotions. And so we can still talk about business, but we're also getting to a place where I'm deepening the conversation. And this is the back and forth. So if I'm asking you that question, you share, and then you say something like, hey, you know, Colleen, I want to know about your dreams. What is this about? That's that mutual give and take that is invested in the future, in really getting to know one another. And I want to make sure before it gets too far, I do want to talk about love bombing because they're talking about it a lot. That is something we got to address here. But that right there, that mutual investment in each other's actual feelings, that shows interest. That shows depth. If you're talking about business the whole time, or you're talking about, even if you're just talking about your kids the whole time, you're not actually invested in the person in front of you.
Yeah. Those are all good points. It's making me ponder on some things, Colleen.
That's what I'm here for.
Not happening on Tinder for you guys? Weird. Anyways, love bombing, huh?
So do you know what love bombing is, Mike? Are you aware of what it is?
I hear the term. I hear tons of terms all the time, and so love bombing, the way I understand it, like on a very surface level, is they are saying all the things that you want to hear to what, like get in your pants, right, or something.
Oh, no, it's. I mean, love bombing is kind of a tool that somebody uses to get in a position in which they can control you and manipulate you. It's an abusive tactic, and love bombing comes from somebody who doesn't believe that they can get love in a real, authentic way. So it typically leads to narcissistic behavior or emotionally abusive relationships. Not everybody who love bombs is an abuser. Let me say that out loud, but it is something that happens often. And what ends up happening is they go in and they create a future with you incredibly quickly. They hit all the pain points. Like, so if I'm going to love bomb you, Mike, I'll be like, oh, you know, I can imagine taking you and Ellie to, this isn't going to work for you, but I can imagine taking you and Ellie to Disney World in my, you know, condo that I bought and just like treating you to everything. You deserve that. You work so hard, you know, and like sending you these lavish gifts and giving you the things that you want and talking in the we terms and like over committing in the front end and typically doing it in a way that is over the top, that it makes you uncomfortable enough where you're kind of like, this is a little bit too much. But especially for women, we kind of get emotionally neglected in heteronormative relationships. So when a man does this, if we're in that heteronormative situation, it's like soothing for a second. Like, oh my goodness, he's not afraid of commitment. Oh wow, he's actually talking about the things I want him to. Oh, he wants to go to Disney World too. Like it's this feeling of like, I'm finally gonna get the fairy tale that I want. And what ends up happening is they love bomb you, and you get a taste of that experience that you want so desperately, and then they like back off and they kind of sprinkle it in with scraps, and at that point they begin to change, manipulate, gaslight, and make you feel like you're crazy for thinking in the first place that they ever invested that much time and effort. And it's twisted. Like it starts a pattern of behavior that is very, very controlling, and it's really unhealthy. And that's why you want to start relationships slow and measured, with both people respecting each other's time, with someone who is not overcommitting and overpromising. Because I promise you, at the end of the day, if someone overcommits or overpromises, it's going to come back around and they're going to be resentful and angry and frustrated, and it doesn't ever get to that high that you wanted before. And it's intense. I've been love bombed for sure. I will be the first to admit it. It is painful because it's like an addiction. You want that so bad. You want that hit again, and it's never going to happen.
It's almost a little, so like I understand everything you're saying, and yes, there's like I get that, right? They're saying all these things that you want to hear that they know you're not getting from some other, whatever, you know, in this scenario, and they're just feeding it to you, knowing that you're gonna soak it up, right? And so, and then what's confusing, not confusing, or just, yeah, I guess confusing a little bit, is all the things you're saying that are part of the love bombing. And I guess I just probably need a good example to like look at and be like, well, yeah, that's like, where's the line as far as, isn't that what you want? And like, this is, if it's like super upfront as far as like it's the first date, second date, and they're talking about retirement, marriage, kids, like, okay, clearly we're crossing that line. I guess it gets a little gray area when it's like talking about things they know you're interested in because they ask you these questions on the first few dates, or you know, early on in the relationship, and they're taking interest and they're listening and they're remembering, which I know I struggle with, right? Like, do you remember my birthday, or do you remember like what my favorite food is, you know, whatever, this stuff. And then like being thoughtful to remember those things. I guess having a good example would help me. Not like, the example you gave was great.
Intense. It's like, I'm going to fly you and Ellie to Disney World and pamper you from head to toe because you work so hard. I've booked the ticket. We leave next week.
I'm like, all right, like,
that's love bombing. Love bombing is intense. Or it's like over investment in the, like, you know, you're so beautiful and amazing, and I can't believe nobody's loved you like this. And I guess, you know,
the flip. That's better. Say that. Like, they're just the type of person where they just love to love, let's say, them. And then when do you know, I guess, when would you know it goes from like them just being themselves to like switch, oh, there goes the bomb, they are now acting like X?
So I would say, number one, nobody who's healthy is ever going to love bomb you. So I don't really care if you love to love. If you're overcommitting and overpromising from day one, you need to do some work. I'm just going to say that they're unavailable. So that's number one right there. If somebody loves to love, they're going to do it in a way that's truthful and based on their integrity. And if they're just getting to know you, they can't say all of these things about you because they don't know you. It's fake. It's not real, right? If you know me, then you can love me. What you're doing right now is you're just saying all the things you think I need to hear. They're not actually real things. So maybe they're not leaning in the direction of the kind of abusive gaslighting experience, but they are in an unhealthy place where they're feeling like they need to overcommit in order to get you. So I just want to say that up front. Yeah. But the switch comes from when you try and set a boundary. Okay. So what ends up happening is usually you get really excited, you get on this high, you have, you know, sex for days, weeks, and you're just like honeymoon phasing it like nobody's business. And I love the honeymoon phase. I'm all for it. It should just take a little bit of time to get there. Like, you know, a little bit. This is very typical in young relationships. That's, you know, but by the time we get into our 30s, we should not be doing this. So we get like into this high, we're having sex all the time, we're making these big plans, we're making these big dreams, we're going on trips together, maybe we move in, like, big thing. It's the first moment that you give them feedback they don't like, or you set a boundary. So it can be something like, oh, actually my girlfriends and I are going to go out this Saturday night. I'm so sorry I can't join you. And that person is like, you don't love me anymore. I can't believe you would say that. You're so neglectful. Look at all the things I did for you. Then you'll be like, oh, no, I just want to go out with my friends. And they'll be like, you're so selfish. Like it's like, it's really yucky. And the gaslighting is where they make you believe that the way that you feel is invalid. So it's like, but wait a second, we talked about this and you're okay with me having friends. And we didn't have that conversation. You must have had it with yourself. You do that all the time. You have conversations with yourself and never tell me. So it's so like, I can feel it in my body as I'm saying it. I'm like, oh, it's just like,
if someone's talking like that, I'm like, okay, ma'am, sir, like whoever's saying it, like it feels gross. Great helps a lot. Thank you. And then so one of the comments I saw, is this a simplified version of explaining love bombing? Is overpromise, underdeliver? Is that like a very dumbed down, like simplistic?
Oh, they can deliver. Sometimes they deliver, and that's the scary shit, right? Like sometimes they'll show up, they'll buy you a house, they'll take you to Disney World, they'll do all of that, but it comes with a cost. And the cost is your devotion and never questioning them and never having a boundary. It comes with complete control. It's the setup for an abusive relationship is what it is.
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm going to ask, if you guys want to ask her a question, just put it in the comments. We'll grab a couple of questions here in a second. So if you guys want to okay, so love bombing turns into manipulating, controlling, because they're like, look at things, and then whammo, the one time you want to actually be your individual self, they...
Yes.
Okay.
This is common, and I'm glad we're talking about it, because to be honest with you, a lot of times people are unavailable coming out of a relationship like this. Okay, so many people will end this relationship and they'll get out of it, and then they have a lot of healing to do, because the self-betrayal that comes from a relationship like that is really painful. And so they want to have a healthy person. They kind of know now what not to go for, but they have to do the healing in order to get there.
Gotcha. One of the questions I saw here, why do some men shower you with compliments and then ghost you when trying to set up a meeting? So I can...
You answer that one.
Yeah. Here's why I do it. Let me tell you why. No, Jesus. Why do some men shower with compliments and then ghost you when trying to set up a meeting? So I feel like they're fishing when they're showering you with compliments. So I picture a dating app or someone you just met and you just started talking, right? And you're in that first day or week of talking, like really early on, but it's like, oh, okay, I like talking to this person. And then they're getting to know you and vice versa. And they start, again, showering you with compliments. And I feel like they're trying to warm up. It just depends what the compliment is. But what compliment is, right? If it's anything physical, then they're warming you up to get you closer to sexual. That's how I picture it. Real probably dead on.
They were bored.
They're bored, yeah. And so if they're complimenting you on a compliment you did, then okay, then maybe, then I don't know. It depends on what else they're complimenting you on. But if they're complimenting anything physical, it's to warm you up to get you to sexual. That's my take.
Yes. And really, it's people will go on the dating apps because it's fun and it's a little dopamine hit and they feel like they're getting attention and they enjoy the back and forth. But when it comes to any sort of real life conversation, it's too scary. So they're out. So it sometimes has nothing to do with you. It really has to do with them.
Yes. All right. Let's see that exactly. So how do you get over the embarrassment of etc.? It's hard to trust my judgment about things afterwards. About talking about it. I mean, please chime in, Colleen, but how do you, you're like, okay, because I've been duped before. So my previous job as a police officer, there's plenty of times where I'm like, I'm going to try this person. I think they're telling me the truth. And then I believe them, I let them go or whatever it was. And then I get damning evidence of video, watching them red hand. You lied to me. Then I get super skeptical. And then eventually I get warmed up to it again, 6 months later, and the similar scenario happens where it's God, I think they did it. I think they're doing this thing you're talking about for relationships, but I want to believe them. I'll believe them this time. And then yet again, you get duped. You're like, dang it, not again, right? So I guess the question, I'll let you take this one a little bit.
So first of all, like understand that embarrassment comes from thinking that you're alone in this, and that you've done something that tells you that you're broken or there's something wrong with you. And I just want you to hear me, like everyone who's been through this. And if you're not looking at the comments, like love bombing is something that I think all of us, especially women, have been through. And it is unfortunately more common than I like to admit, but you are not alone. And there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. It's about learning, number one, what it is. We're not taught this as kids. Okay. This isn't something we learned in our culture. This isn't something that we grew up with understanding. So it's about getting the education, the tools to know. And then also it's about forgiving yourself for believing in hope and love and for believing that in someone's potential. That there's nothing wrong with that. It's beautiful. The problem is that we will sacrifice ourselves for that potential. And the work begins in how you actually turn inward and say, I no longer have to sacrifice myself in order to get love. And to be honest with you all, most of us learn that in childhood. We learn to adapt to whatever our caretakers would give us or whatever emotional things they were going through in order for us to receive love. We changed ourselves. And then we didn't figure out how to, as adults, let go of that pattern of behavior. So love bombing is really susceptible for those of us with abandonment wounds. So anybody that's a millennial that had baby boomer parents who were emotionally neglected, raise your hand. I love my parents so much if you're watching, but you know, they were taught to I don't know. My mom loves this stuff. So if you take a step back from the emotions, or they're dealing with their emotional stuff and just haven't done the work themselves, it leaves children in a place of just not really understanding how to navigate that. And so those abandonment wounds come up, and the love bombing for a second feels like maybe, just maybe, we can be loved in the way that we wanted to. And so it really goes into doing the work on yourself and making sure you address that first, so that when you get into those situations, those actually look like red flags and they don't look like the answer to your problems. And you are not alone. I'm a therapist, and this has happened to me multiple times. So please hear me when I say that.
Classic. Human.
Yeah.
All right. I love that. That's great. All right, last question I think that I'm seeing here. How do you know the difference between someone who wants a romance and someone who just wants sex? I think it's timing, right?
Yeah.
What are they talking about? What are they complimenting? What are they looking at? If you're in person, are they looking down at your breasts? Are they looking, you know, the guy, right? So this is a woman who's asking this, as so I'm assuming here. But like, if they're looking down at your physical features, that's one thing. If they're commenting on that, if they're trying to talk about sexual things, whether they're jokes or parts of movies, anything to talk about the word sex in any of the conversation they're having, text, phone call, in person, the movie they choose, anything. They're just warming up the idea of, will she talk of, is she okay?
He's giving you the goods, ladies. This is what happens.
It's like putting your toe in some water. Like,
it's so true.
How I put my foot in there now? Like, oh, my ankle. Let's jump in, right? And so it's such a dude move. You know, can a guy talk about sex and not want to have sex? Yes. It comes up organically in the conversation. How does it come up in the conversation? Why? Who brought it up? What stirred the conversation, right? Was it a comment the waiter said that was like overtly sexual, and you're like, you know, and you're just reacting to it with your date, and you say it once, you go, haha, joke, and then your conversation goes back to whatever you're talking about. That's an organic sexual comment situation. Now, if he goes back to it more and more, and then like comes back, then it's touching the water again. He's tiptoeing. That's what I see. That's what I see.
And I'll add one tiny piece here. You're just laying it all out for us, Mike. Thank you. Now we know. I think men are gonna bring up sex. They are. Because they want it. And I'm being gendered here. I'm not saying this doesn't happen for LGBTQ, because it definitely does. But I think that people are, especially if, so for me, you know, I'm divorced, 2 kids, so we're we're all fully aware that sex is something we all want. So it is something people talk about more often in later years of life and dating. But I think it's if it's the only topic or if it's the first one, it's how much priority do they give it? And again, are they invested in actual, real, vulnerable questions? Do they respect your time? Are they making a plan with you? Do they want to have multiple dates? And your job forever and always is to set the standards from the beginning. Okay? If you're not interested in casual, you make that known pretty right off the bat. If you are interested in casual, you make it known pretty right off the bat. But if you are interested in something long term, you let them know day one, moment one, sentence one. Because if someone is coming in and they want a real relationship, they're going to see that as a standard that's being set. And in heteronormative relationships, men like to desire. They want to desire you. They want to chase you. They do. They want desire. And so holding that standard and allowing them to desire you is also a piece of what causes attraction and attachment. And, you know, when we are talking about the brain chemicals that happen in all of this, the longer we can hold in that waiting period, in that longing place, the more dopamine hits we get in the brain and the more serotonin. And this is a component that we've been taught not to hold as often. I mean, I'm an independent woman. I'm all about getting what you want when you want it. But there is desire, and that is the piece that pulls somebody into a deeper part of who you are and holds the standards high. So it's not that you can't have a casual partner turn into a romantic relationship or become long-term. That can happen for sure with the right timing. But if what you're going into is wanting that serious long-term relationship, be very upfront about it from the beginning and allow that desire to build.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great information. I love that stuff. That's a good analogy to all the things. Okay, so it's been a great conversation. If you want to throw a plug out there, Colleen, throw your plug out. Moment. Do you have any classes coming up, courses? What you got?
Plug. Well, my first plug is going to be our retreat, only because I think it's going to be incredible. And anybody that's navigating the divorce, dating, single world should come, because you get luxury and 5-star accommodations, as well as this incredible experience to dig deep in some of these concepts with like-minded people who are trying to do the work alongside you.
Yep.
So I think that's really important. Mike and I are playing with the idea of doing some accountability groups or coaching groups where we can come in and really help people dig into what the work actually is. So stay tuned for that. And I am hosting a free masterclass on what yes, widows can attend the retreat. Please come. Love all my widows. I have plenty as clients. And I am hosting a free masterclass next Thursday on the new moon. The link is in my bio. You can find it there. And this is where I go over really what the work actually is. I also talk about what the 12 shadow archetypes are and how they show up in our life and how they kind of disrupt our ability to attract money, wealth, partners, everything that we want. So, grab your spot in that masterclass, but to be honest, it's the retreat. Come on the retreat.
Great plug. Good job.
Never married, you can still come. It's just for those that are navigating the life of being single right now. If you're in a couple, wait. Maybe we'll play with a couples retreat one day, but this is for those navigating the single world.
At the retreat coming up for masterclass, we have accountability coaching happening here sometime here real soon. I got the podcast coming up, and then we have the conference we're planning, which will be in the new year. I'm going back and forth with all the hotels.
Yeah.
Sometime in the January, February, March, because I keep getting different dates. But anyways, I appreciate the time, Colleen. I'm gonna eat food because I'm hungry. And we'll pick another topic. If you guys want to send me some DMs or whatever, or heard some DMs about what topic today's was, again, why you choose Unavailable Partners, and this is kind of what it led to. So.
Yeah. Please feel free to DM me or Mike if you have questions about the retreat. I'm happy to answer any of the questions that come up or about the conference. We're here to educate and just support, because we all know that this is a tough world out there, and we want to support all of you. So thanks for showing up. And Mike, thanks for having me on. I hope this isn't the last time. I'll see you again.
Yep, retreat Rica, November 6th through 12th. All right,
Yeah.
guys. I'm going to try to end this. Let's see if I can find the button here.
It's an X at the top
Thank
of the
you.
screen.
See you guys.